actually happy being miserable.
Ah,
Yeah.
you have noise in your head.
Yeah, sometimes the left side of my brain has a tendency to overestimate its importance.
Why do you get control of our central nervous system? You idiot!
Wow! We've been stuck in this weird platonic phase for 6 months now. Are we friends or more than friends? What do I say in the text?
Anything. Except I love you, you're my soulmate, I've never met anyone like you crap.
Do not think about Helen.
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode 212. Releasing this Thursday, 16th of May, is Me and My Left Brain, a wonderfully inventive comedy that deals with an unemployed actor in his mid-40s who questions his life decisions after his career and personal life goes belly up. Shot in Sydney, influenced by the likes of Woody Allen and Billy Wilder, and featuring fantastic performances from its cast, Me and My Left Brain is a must-see for those who like their comedies with wit, intelligence, and heart. Joining me now to talk about Me and My Left Brain is the film's writer, director, and star, Alex Lykos. Alex, I thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
I find your trajectory into cinema very interesting. So you come from a vast experience from theatre background. First movie you came on as a writer-producer with Alex Lykos. Now you're going to be director, writer, and producer. It's just such an interesting kind of way to go into there. Becoming a director this time out, having your fingerprints all over this material. Why the decision to go all in? And did working on Alex and Eve really give you a taste for the cinema experience and want to delve deeper into that?
Alex and Eve was a very interesting experience. It was a very frustrating experience in many ways, a difficult experience in many ways. It wasn't personally a pleasant experience, the making of it. So I've been doing theatre for about 12 years where I pretty much controlled every element of the theatre show, putting it on the stage, and then especially Alex and Eve, which had 3 incarnations over a 10-year period, and then all of a sudden, you're handing the film over, decisions are being, and rightly so, creative decisions are being made for the film adaptation. Perhaps some you agree with, some you don't. That's part of the collaborative process. I then saw what filmmaking entailed, what it encompassed, and one of the takeaways I took from that film was, because I was used to theatre where the turnaround time was so quick, I could write a play in about 6 months, and within 3 or 4 months of finishing the play, it was on the stage. Film was much slower, so I wanted to make a lower budget movie in the hope that the turnaround time would be much quicker, and of course having some more autonomy in terms of what the finished film would be. And obviously with this film, I wrote it specifically with that in mind, and strangely enough, the restrictions were, in a paradoxical way, quite liberating. The restrictions of budget were actually quite liberating because it forced you to kind of be more lateral in your telling of the story.
Alex and Eve is a terrific movie. It's one of my favourite films of that year. What I really find interesting, Alex, is that my surname is Pejkovic, your surname is Lykos. There's many people in both of our professions that come from backgrounds of European ethnicity. And it seems to me that in Australian cinema, exactly, and I'm not sure if theatre is the same, that people who come from a different background seem to be segmented, whether they do it themselves or not. And so the idea is that if you come from an ethnic background, you have to do an ethnic film or a comedy. That
is such a great observation, I believe, because specifically with this film, obviously Alex and Eve, explored, I guess, what we now know, as you said, ethnic comedy, ethnic archetypes, based on our kind of lives growing up, and that's what Alex and Eve kind of encompassed. And with this one, I was specific about wanting to tell a comedy that did not rely on the quote-unquote ethnic comedy, didn't rely on ethnic archetypes. You know, my character happens to be Greek-Australian, but there's no mention of his ethnicity in any way to extract comedy, or none of the conflict in the film, was the result of his ethnic background.
Yep.
It just happens to be, he happens to be Greek-Australian, one of the characters happens to be Croatian-Australian, but there's no mention of her being Croatian-Australian. She just happens to be that way.
Yep.
And so that was the challenge, and something I really, really enjoyed, and that was, hey, here's a comedy made by quote-unquote ethnics, but nothing to do with exploring and poking fun at our ethnicity.
Yeah, and I think that's a very important thing as well, because I always encourage filmmakers, no matter what background they are, if they want to make a film in regards to tribute of their ethnic background, go ahead and do so, but don't make every film about that. Because I'd imagine you yourself, Alex, you don't want to get stuck in a rut being known as a guy who just makes one type of material film. And I think we've seen that before with other people, not to mention names. But what I really liked about this film is that it's more, of course, it's me and my left brain, so it's more about the internal than it is about anything else. And the character of Arthur that you made, he's a man that's filled with many self-doubts, and I think that's very natural for artistic people to have that. His self-doubts, though, are very specific, so I have to ask, how much of Arthur's self-doubts correlates with your own? I mean, is this a very kind of a biographical film on your part?
Look, there are elements of the character that I certainly that I've certainly kind of extrapolated from my life. There are other elements that aren't, that are pure, fiction in terms of the creation of the character and the story. But certainly, the question of the career path I've chosen, being taking up a life in the arts, I grapple with that, so many times, because it's such a grind. It is so hard. It is, I've been working on this film without any fees, any payments, for almost 2 years. It's hard. I love it. I bloody wish I fell in love with property development, and I wish I fell in love with investment banking. Instead, I fell in love with the arts. So there's absolutely, what happens is you see your friends who you grew up with or you went to university with, etc., who, have got these more, I guess, structured jobs, structured careers, and after a couple of years they get the promotion and they go from, just working in the business or the firm to middle management, to then, whatever the case may be. And you can see that natural progression, that time in that firm or that occupation provides. Whereas in the arts, it's so arbitrary, you might get a big hit tomorrow, or in all likelihood, it doesn't really matter what you do. It's a struggle for your next project.
Yep.
There's no incremental progress, the result of putting time in. So that plays on you, because you don't know where your next paycheck is going to come from. So it definitely, there's a lot of autobiographical moments in the film as I grapple with the career choice that I've made, with a life in the arts. I mean, I love it. Somebody the other day said to me, he's an actor friend of mine struggling. He said, look, I'm thinking of quitting, And I said, well, look, I don't know if I can do that, because if I were to quit tomorrow, in my spare time, what would I do? Nothing else nothing else I'd rather do than write.
Yep.
So by definition, I actually can't quit, because it's what I do in my spare time, irrespective of anything else.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
It does.
I really can't quit.
Yeah, I mean, you have a great line in Arthur has in the film where he says he's happy being miserable. And it comes down to the thing where, much like yourself, for the last 12, 13 years, I've been writing as a critic and entertainment journalist, etc., and freelance and doing it on my own and such. It's not a 9-to-5 thing, and I think we know that, but it's a thing of, it's what satisfies us. However, that being said, it's not the most logical kind of step forward, isn't it? I think that's what it comes down to this movie. I think it's always the left brain that you're personified in. That's personified in your movie. That's logic saying to the rest of you, look, this is a bad idea. But you just can't help but say, I don't care, I got to take that step forward and do what I need to do.
Yeah, and I mean, even within the context of this conversation right now, I mean, the left side of my brain has already said, I wish I fell in love with property real estate, but I know that that's not something that's for me. I know that for me, telling stories is my greatest love, but then the pragmatic side says, you idiot, you could have bought that golf set had you bloody, had another career.
Let's talk about the left side of the brain as personified in this movie. You cast Malcolm Kennard in that role. Now, a lot of people, when they see Malcolm Kennard, they remember Ivan Milat. They remember kind of like characters, very much intimidating, ferocious characters. But in here, he gives a really great comedic performance. Did you know Malcolm beforehand?
No. Yeah, thank you for that. It's really lovely because again, going back to Alex and Eve, going back to the idea of autonomy, I had an idea in my head because I know the story well, and being the writer of it, and I had an idea in my head of who I wanted the left brain to be. I wanted it to be somebody who has more status than me, who probably is going to be subconsciously frustrated to be taking direction from a new director, and hopefully that subconscious frustration would manifest itself on screen. And I just thought, rather than trying to play someone, get somebody who is funny, getting somebody because the comedy doesn't come from someone trying to be funny. The comedy comes from someone being frustrated, or the left side of the brain being frustrated with what the other side of the brain is doing with the life. That's where the comedy comes. So it needs to be played straight and serious in many ways. And I set up I thought, well, who better to do that than Ivan Milat, playing against type. And we set up a half-hour conversation, half-hour coffee with the agent for me to meet Mal. And so it was only supposed to be half an hour. Well, 3 hours later, we were finishing each other's sentences. We were agreeing on most things, agreeing. We couldn't leave each other, and the chemistry was instant. You can't really find that in an audition. It just happens, I mean, I met with other actors and we spoke for half an hour and it was formal and cordial and polite and et cetera and whatnot. Whereas with Mal, just something happened. He got me, I got him, and we were these kind of instant kindred spirits. And it was pretty clear, pretty easy then. I didn't even audition him. I just said, mate, we're it. This is it. This is the chemistry that you can't really rehearse. And that was it.
Speaking of chemistry, you also have great chemistry with Rachel Beck. A lot of people remember her from Hey Dad, Home and Away, a bunch of other Aussie TV shows as well. Like, similar question to Malcolm, did you know of Rachel beforehand? Was this a thing where you had to audition her as well, I imagine?
No, Rachel was another one. I did not audition Rachel either. She had come to see, a friend of hers was in a play of mine several years ago. She had come to see it, and we chatted briefly after the play. She thought she said she enjoyed the play, and she had this kind of natural spunk about her, but I never thought anything of it. And then when I finished the script and I was looking for people to play the next door neighbour, she popped up in my head, and because she just had a natural, organic energy, and I just kind of reached out to her. She read the script, she liked it, and I said, look, I love your energy, I love the spunk that you will bring to this character, and she graciously accepted. And then she said, look, it's important we build a bond, and we just started meeting for coffees and just kind of working through the script, talking loosely, walking around Surrey Hills, etc. And, she's the one that really did a good job of building the bond between us. And with Rachel, she's just lovely. I mean, she's just lovely off-screen. She's warm, she's endearing, she's just lovely off-screen. So it was just so easy to build a bond with her.
locations are a big part of this movie. This is a Sydney story. There are a lot of parts of Sydney that are shown in the film. There's one part that evokes Woody Allen, where you and another actor are at Iron Cove Bridge, just looking over that. How important is, in regards to pre-production, finding the places where you want to shoot? Because a lot of time, where a film is set says a lot about what the film is itself.
Yeah, look, obviously, watching a lot of Aussie movies, one of the things that we probably tend to do, and Alex and Eve, I believe, may have fell a little bit into that trap, maybe not. I think we did it pretty artfully in Alex and Eve, but it's always, we're going to make a movie, let's show the Harbour Bridge and let's show the Opera House. The two, quintessential landmarks in Australia, particularly Sydney. And I live in the inner west, and I just felt like there are pockets of the inner west that are quite romantic, and I wanted to try to be as original as I could by finding these lovely little pockets of Sydney that perhaps don't get the mainstream attention that they should get. And obviously the inner west is growing quite beautifully over the last few years. So I was specific in wanting to find little pockets that perhaps weren't exposed on screen before. So we could see a different side of Sydney on the screen. And one of the things I tried to do, this film was a bit of an exploration between friendship love versus romantic love. And in the one plot line with the girl that Arthur is in love with, I wanted to make those settings as romantic as possible.
One of the biggest things that comes up in conversation when I talk to independent filmmakers, whether here in Australia or overseas, is distribution. It's one thing to get your film made, it's another thing to get your film out there and for people to see. And we're living in very interesting times right now. You have cinema, streaming, video on demand, etc., etc. You are taking care of the distribution yourself. You've actually created your own distribution company. Talk to me about the idea of doing that. I mean, does that come from early indications that maybe have been an independent filmmaker, that it's going to be quite hard for someone to pick up the film and to do it yourself? Did you always want to get into distribution yourself? Explain to me how the process worked with that.
Look, without going into too much detail about Alex and Eve, we had some significant distribution was a bit of a sore point. When we made Alex and Eve, I did not understand what the word distribution meant.
Right.
I did not know at all. We were so naive as filmmakers when we made Alex and Eve. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. Little did I know that that the cinema owners and the distributors are the ones who make the money in the film, especially on the back end. So we have been, as I said, we've been doing theatre for about 12 years. We've got a small but loyal fan base that will come to our work no matter what it is. And this being a more intimate little film, I thought the best chance it has is for a small platform release. And I know my audience intimately. I know where they live. I know how to reach out to them. We've got our databases, etc. And we thought that would be the best approach. And if the film is no good, well, the film is no good, right? We can't help that. But if the film is good and it hits a nerve with people, and we're on platform release, and hopefully, we can get some word of mouth spread, and then we can perhaps add screens down the road. But at least we know what our marketing budget is going to be. We know where the money's going, and at least we're getting some of that money back for our audience, who will be our initial audience who will go and see this film. Whereas if we were to hand it over to a distributor, obviously that initial surge of ticket sales would not go to us, it would go to the distributor first. So we thought, for this film, let's reach out to our audience, let's play it on a few cinemas that we know they live nearby, and let's see if the film can perhaps generate some word of mouth. And if it does, great, we can then add some cinemas. And now once we understood it, the process of distributing, especially for a small film that doesn't need to be on 300 screens across the country, hasn't been too bad. For example, on Thursday, our premiere day, we open in cinemas on the 16th of May, I had this idea of a morning premiere and a night premiere. And, you know, it's an offbeat idea, but we were able to enact it because we were the ones distributing the movie. So we've got a morning premiere at Beverly Hills Cinemas for the seniors, which we're putting a morning tea on for them. And then we've got a night premiere at Randwick Ritz, which is, you know, lovely.
So for everyone listening out there, Me and My Left Brain releases Thursday, 16th of May. Alex, what's the best way for people to find screening times if there's a cinema near them? I understand that Event Cinemas are doing a bunch of screenings for you as well.
Yeah, Event Cinemas, I got to tell you, they've really gotten behind this. We're playing 3 times a day at GU Filmhouse Cronulla, which is Event Cinemas, GU Filmhouse Beverly Hills, which is Event Cinemas. We're playing at United Collaroy 3 times a day, I think it is, and Randwick 3 times a day. Our website is meandmyleftbrain.com. All the information is there. I'll repeat that again for you. meandmyleftbrain.com. meandmyleftbrainmovie.com.
Okay.
My apologies. meandmyleftbrainmovie.com.
So for everyone listening, meandmyleftbrainmovie.com. Movie comes out tomorrow, Thursday, 16th of May. Get out there. Get into cinemas, people. Support independent film. Support Australian independent film. I can recommend this film highly. Alex, you've done great work here. I've loved your work so far that you've done with Alex Lykos in this film as well. And I look forward to seeing what you're doing next. Hopefully, you're going to be staying within the film sphere. We're going to expect more in regards to films being released under your distribution banner.
Look, for the more independent movies, absolutely. If we go away and do, you know, a big $10 million movie, definitely we would look to bring, you know, a distributor who can handle a $10 million movie. But you know, I just went for a tech run now at Randwick Ritz to make sure the film, you know, sounds good and looks good, etc. And you know, I have to say I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. Yeah, if I may quickly mention the soundtrack, you know, I wanted an all-jazz soundtrack, and we got that. You know, Cezary Skibusky, who's an award-winning composer, put together this beautiful soundtrack, all jazz. So to all the jazz lovers out there, please get out there and watch it.
It's a great movie, Alex. You did a great job here, and congratulations to you and your cast and crew. And for everyone out there, be sure to check it out. May 16th, Me and My Left Brain. Alex, I thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.